From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. I call this episode Battlefield of the Mind, really moving from captivity to conquest. And this is something I talk about a lot in my book, Beyond Bound and Broken, A Journey of Healing and Resilience. And I liken the journey of resilience to it's an emotional battle that we fight. And there are three distinct phases, emotional phases, not necessarily physical ones. And the first phase is really the most difficult. It's kind of the dark time emotionally when you are just actively living through despair or frustration or pain or hurt. And I call this the captivity phase because emotionally you're captive to those emotions, those situations, those feelings, the thoughts that you're having. When you're feeling down or depressed or just despairing and you almost can't focus on something else. You're in captivity to that because you're not yet able to rise above it. The second phase is what I call the coping phase, where you're out of the worst of the situation mentally and you're okay, but you're still bound or broken in some places. Maybe surviving, but not yet thriving. And that's a big difference. And the third phase is the conquest phase, where you've overcome and you really can look back now and say, I'm resilient because I've been able to rise back up from that. Now, how quickly and how fast we come to that point is determined by our resilience factor, our ability to move beyond just surviving day to day to actually thriving and enjoying life. And the higher our resilience factor, the greater our ability to overcome whatever happens to us in life and move through those phases quicker. Now, we could be in captivity to a lot of different things. It might be you're captive to emotions and feelings like fear or anger or doubt or shame from something you went through or pain from the past. It might be a destructive relationship that was hurtful to you and you're captive to the emotions that has caused. We could be in captivity to food, overindulging in food or drugs or too much of anything just about can be a negative influence in our life. Too much exercise. Exercise can be a negative influence. You can be in captivity to exercise if it's too much and you're not in control of that as a positive behavior. Then it becomes an addiction, a negative influence in your life. Relationships. We could be addicted to or captive to bad relationships in our life if we're not willing to take the step to end them, to terminate them, or to renegotiate them. It's not so much as what we're doing as why we're doing something that determines if we're in captivity to it. So, for example, anger. We could be a captive to angry emotions. But even in the Bible, we have an example where Jesus was able to be angry righteously. And so it's not necessarily what we're doing as much as why we're doing it that really demonstrates whether it's controlling us or we're directing it. And that's a key important difference. Recognizing if our emotions or our behaviors or actions are in control of our state of mind, or if we're deciding them, if we're determining them. So, if it's an emotional captivity, it may not even show up on the outside. A lot of times as people, we're going through something emotionally and we kind of just put up a front, put up a face, and we don't show that part of us to someone else. And sometimes we deal with it in destructive ways or behaviors to try to deal with the battle in our mind that's going on emotionally. Robert Morris has a good quote on this that talks about a physical bruise is caused by inward bleeding. And a person's skin might get hit, and at first there's no outward sign. Emotional bruising can follow the same course. A person who suffers through rejection or loss or hurt, and at first there might not be an outward sign, but inwardly the person is bleeding, and soon the signs of that hurt will appear for anyone to see. Now, it took me, after I left home at 19, I moved from that captivity phase after I left home. Emotionally and physically, I was able to leave that phase behind for me. And I moved to the coping phase, and I spent several years in that second coping phase. At this point, we're still fighting a battle internally, but we've moved beyond just complete despair or hurt or pain, but we still have wounds inside that haven't healed. And at this phase, we acknowledge that there's a problem, and maybe we've taken some steps to overcome. This is kind of the rebound or the healing phase, where we've hit the bottom, and maybe we're on the way back up, but we're not up yet. Now, this phase might last for minutes or years. And there might be some people that never get to the next phase, but I want to help you get there. I want to help you get there because for me, I can tell you that the coping phase for me wasn't bad. Life wasn't bad through those years after I left home, but before I really shared my personal story of living through being abused as a teenager by my father. I learned to be successful at work. I learned to go on to manage things and learn to overcome a lot of the challenges that I had, that a lot of them were simply just learning to get out of my own way, professionally and personally. And what's interesting, at this point in my healing, I didn't want to define myself as a victim. I didn't want others to define me that way. I still don't. And so I would just tell myself that I was perfectly fine, that I didn't have anything to heal from. And it really was simply pretending that the wounds weren't there. And that's not healthy. You know, when we get hurt in life, when something happens to us and we've got wounds, they need to heal, and they may leave scars. Absolutely. But we've got to be able to let them heal and form that scar tissue instead of just festering inside. Because if we're not able to talk about it, it still has power over us. And that shows that we're still in that coping phase. We're not really completely, truly healed. Now, the third phase is really where you're living in the light. I call this the conquest phase. And you've really reached a complete victory over the past or even the present. Now, let me be clear. You might physically be in prison or jail even. Or maybe you're physically ill or handicapped or disabled. But emotionally, you're in a place of light. And to me, you're only able to reach this phase because of God's healing and love. Because really at this point, we've found the joy in living. We've found the light. We've found the healing and the peace that comes from winning that inner battle. Conquest is just that. It's complete victory. We've mastered resilience, and you've learned to thrive in spite of your circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean life gets easy all of a sudden. It just means we're emotionally better equipped to deal with the storms that life brings us. Because the more resilience you have, the faster you can spring back up when something knocks you down. Now, there'll still be times when you get knocked down, but you've learned how to get up again. And I'll tell you a secret. Once you've learned how to do that, how to rise above something in life, it gets easier to do. Once we've learned how to get back up from that place of despair or even darkness, it becomes easier to do the next time because we know the path to get there. So I want to leave you with just a couple of things that really helped me move through these phases, because I like to leave you with a takeaway that you can apply to your own situation. Maybe you're not going through a time of hardship right now, but maybe you know someone who is. So I'd like to share with you just a couple of key things that really helped for me. The first one, I had to learn to change my thoughts. There's no reason to spend energy in wishful thinking or what ifs. I know it's tempting to do, especially when we feel like we made some mistakes and contributed to our situation. But we've got to learn to move away from that and start by changing our thoughts, because our thoughts determine our feelings and our feelings determine our actions. So we have to start by choosing to think and focus on things that are positive. Read positive books or listen to positive audios or watch great TEDx talks. But just those influences that we put in our mind are so important in helping us heal. It's not about dwelling on the past and the negatives. It's about learning the lessons and then moving on and saying, I'm going to focus forward instead of driving through life looking in the rearview mirror. So one key way that I do this is I focus on being grateful. And I know I talk about gratitude a lot, but it's just so powerful in helping us keep a positive perspective and outlook on life. Gratitude does everything from help you feel better to help you live longer. It's incredible what practicing gratitude in our life does. So something that's really great, start your day every morning. Take 2 minutes and jot down in a notebook or a 3x5 card, just one thing. Hey, today I'm grateful for one thing. And this is it. Maybe today you're grateful that you had the health to go exercise. Maybe it's grateful for that first cup of coffee. Maybe it's grateful for someone in your life who's helped you. Just one thing. Start your day with just a few minutes there and think of one thing that you're grateful for, or one person that you're grateful for. And you will find it changes your whole outlook on the morning, your whole perspective on the day. The second thing that was really powerful is decide to help someone else. There's a research study that shows that volunteering is absolutely the number one way that we can become more resilient, but it's often the least frequently practiced. So let me say that again. Helping someone else is the number one way, according to research, that we can overcome something that we've been through personally. And yet most of us don't do it. It's the least used. But just make a decision to volunteer and help someone else, or do something for someone else that they can't do for themselves. I share a story of early in the first few days and weeks after I left home. I just took a pizza to one of my coworkers. She didn't have a car, and I knew she was stuck at home, and I knew that she depended on the leftover pizza from the restaurant buffet to feed her family sometimes. And so I was working the day shift, and we had almost a whole pizza left over. And at the end of the buffet, you really just have to throw out whatever's left. And rather than throw it out, I boxed it up and I took it to her. It was just the littlest thing. It didn't even cost me anything. It was just, something that was going to get thrown away. But it just changed my whole outlook and focusing on my problems and my pain when I realized I could help somebody else. Just the little things with people are the big things. And the third thing that's really very powerful in helping you heal from something is just start making some good memories. Give yourself something to plan and look forward to. Go on and make a plan right now. What am I going to do? Maybe I'm just going to plan a weekend getaway, or maybe it's a big week-long vacation. But go ahead and make some plans and give yourself something to focus forward on. And that'll give you some good memories to look back on. So really 3 very simple but very powerful things that you can do to help yourself move from emotional captivity to really conquest. And that's how we win the battle going on emotionally in our mind. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.